welcome to the first information session on MIT's blended Supply Chain Masters program. I'm Bruce Einstein. I'm the Executive Director of MIT's Supply Chain Management program. I've invited Ava Ponce, who is the Executive Director of the MicroMasters program, to be with us today. And Katie Date, who is our Manager of Corporate Outreach. She'll be fielding questions and asking me the questions along the way. We're very excited about this. This is new for us and new for you, this whole blended program and the MicroMasters. So this is a whole new frontier that we're launching as we go here. The things that we're going to cover today, besides the welcome, I'm going to ask in a minute, I'm going to ask Ava to give us a quick update on the comprehensive final exam. I know that that's the thing that everybody's very nervous about right now, so we want to get that out of the way right at the very beginning. We'll talk about a brief overview of MIT and the Center for Transportation and Logistics and the SCALE network. We'll talk about the blended program, what's the dates, what's going to happen. There's a calendar of things that are going to happen along the way, the admission requirements, details about the program. We'll talk about the research proposal and some financial aid things as well. I want to thank the MicroMaster students who made the trip here to Cambridge and found their way through all the road construction to join us today in the audience. And thanks very much. What we'll do is we'll go through the presentation, try to answer a lot of the questions along the way, but then we'll leave a lot of time at the end for your questions, both from the audience here and those that are submitted through the feature online, the chat online. So why don't we get started here?
Great. So before we get too much into the blended program itself, why don't you tell us a little bit about the campuses where the students can enroll in the SCALE blended program?
Yeah, so MIT is a very interesting place. There's two places we're going to talk about today. One is here at MIT. The other one is our Zaragoza Logistics Center. But the program is very similar at both places we'll talk about. MIT is a very unusual university. It's probably different than any other university you're ever going to see. It's what I call an upside-down university. It's got a small number of undergraduate students, a much larger number of graduate students, and I think there's even a larger number of researchers. Ava and I are researchers, and so there's a massive number of researchers, and then there's a faculty, so it's kind of upside down. Our population of students is about 11,000. We have a lot of international students. About 1/3 of our graduate students are international students. And we also have about 400 to 500 international undergraduate students. The Zaragoza Logistics Center was formed back in 2008. It's a joint agreement between the government of Aragon, the state of Aragon in Spain, and the University of Zaragoza. It's essentially an exact copy of what we have here at MIT. They've been teaching the same classes and doing the same things. We'll talk in a minute about what the Center for Transportation and Logistics does. But it's ranked the #1 global supply chain educational institution. So we're very proud of it. Here's a few pictures of MIT. What you can see is actually down in the lower right is our students. The first day there at MIT. We're actually out on an island in the Boston Harbor playing a lot of games. And then you can see in the middle, the last day they're at MIT, they've all got their cap and gown on. In the lower left is the obligatory picture. It's standing in front of the dome. I think every MIT student is required to stand in front of the dome and get their picture taken. Yeah. And our mascot, the beaver, there. So there's some pictures of MIT. Pictures of our Zaragoza Logistics Center is in the absolutely gorgeous town of Zaragoza, Spain. It's got lots of very interesting old architecture and the influence of the Romans.
Excellent food.
Excellent food. Lots of places to party.
Yeah.
And you can see the students on some of their outings that they've gone on as well. So, so let me tell you a little bit about the MIT Center for Transportation and Logistics. We really do three things here. You can see the three circles: research, outreach, and the students, the education. So I run part, and Eva runs part of the education program, the Supply Chain Masters, the MicroMasters. We have a few PhD students as well. The second thing we do is corporate outreach. That's what Katie manages our relationships with all of our corporations. There's at any one time between 45 and 50 companies that belong to our center and participate very actively with our students. As you'll hear in a minute, all of our students are required to do a research project, and those research projects are done in conjunction with those companies that belong to our center. We also do research beyond just our corporate partners. We do a lot of research projects. We have quite a staff of researchers here at the Center for Transportation Logistics. And so these three elements work very much in tandem, work together. This same model is copied. I'm going to switch over to talking about our global scale network. The global scale network, we've essentially cloned ourselves. We've cloned ourselves first in Zaragoza, Spain. We also made a copy of ourselves in Bogota, South America. More recently, we've opened up the Malaysian Institute for Supply Chain Innovation. Then we have two new centers coming on right now, one in Ningbo, China, and one in Luxembourg. And at each of those centers, except for the one in Bogota, that one's a little different, but each of those centers, they do exactly what we do here at MIT. They have a master's degree program like we do. And so far, it's the center in Spain that is able to also offer the blended program. I think in future years, the other centers will also begin to offer the blended program there as well. So at this time, I know the comprehensive final exam is on everybody's mind, so I'm going to ask Ava to give us a little explanation of what that's all about.
Sure. Thank you, Bruce. And welcome everyone, Global Supply Chainers. We are so excited. You are almost about to cross the finish line of the MicroMaster credential, and we are all very, very excited about that. Okay, so the comprehensive final exam. The first question is why? Why we are doing this comprehensive final exam? So the main reason is, as you know, it's a requirement. So you need to complete and pass the 5 SCX courses as a verified student. And in addition to that, you need to complete and pass as a verified student the comprehensive final exam. So the reason to do this exam is because we need to assess, we need to evaluate your knowledge in the 5 courses, in the previous 5 courses, and see how your ability to synthesize and apply the concepts in the 5 SCX courses. So this is the main reason. In addition to that, as you know, once you apply to the blended program and you get admission, we are going to convalidate these courses for credits. Are going to be course credit at MIT. This is another reason why we need to assess your knowledge in the 5 SCX courses. So where we are now, you already complete 4 courses as a verified student. You are almost about to complete the 5th course. This is the Supply Chain Technology and System course. And after that, you will meet the requirements to sit and complete the comprehensive final exam. So this is all the requirements you need. In terms of the comprehensive final exam, what you need is, first, you need to be a verified student in this course. This means that you need to pay the fee. The fee is $600 for this course, and you need to be ID verified. This is very, very relevant and very important. You need to be sure that you are an ID verified student in the comprehensive final exam, not only during the course, also once you complete the exam. Why? Because once we are going to issue the certificate, the MicroMaster certificate, you need to be ID verified. So that means that please be sure that your ID verification is on date, is in good shape in order to meet the requirements, and then we can issue the certificate for you. So these are the 2 requirements: be verified, pay the fee, and also ID verified student. The exam. So the exam, you are going to have 2 exams, 2 hours per exam, 120 minutes per exam. There are going to be time exam. This means that once you start the exam, you are going to have only 2 hours to complete it. After the 2 hours, the exam is going to be closed, and you have no chance to submit any solution or answer to this exam. So you just have 2 hours per exam. Once you take the first exam, within 12 hours, you can take the second one. So be sure that you book for a reasonable time slot in order to complete the first exam, 2 hours, have a break, and then the second exam within 12 hours. The first exam is going to cover basically the fundamental analytical methods. And the second one is going to cover more advanced supply chain concepts, and is going to be more qualitative than the first one. This does not mean that you are not going to have math in the second exam. Definitely you are going to have math in both exams. But let's say that the first one is going to be more quantitative, and the second one a little bit more qualitative. As I mentioned, 2 exams, 2 hours per exam. So let's see, we have the next part. Okay, perfect. So in terms of the timeline and the location, you have 2 options. You can choose to do it virtually or physically. The virtual proctor exam is going to open on May 19th, and it's going to be open during 72 hours until Monday, May 22nd. All of our deadlines, as you know, is at 1500 UTC. So please check your local time and be sure that you are submitting your solutions before the deadline. This is very, very important. So the virtual exam, 72 hours, is going to be open from Friday, May 19th to Monday, May 22nd. The physical exam is going to happen on Saturday, May 20th. It's going to be during the morning at 5 different locations. You can choose to come here at MIT in Cambridge, United States. You can choose to go to Zaragoza in Spain, Bogota in Colombia, Sahalam in Malaysia, Luxembourg in Europe, or Ningbo in China. These are the 5 locations that we are offering, that are our centers in the global network scale. So these options are mutually exclusive. That means that you can only choose to do virtually or physically, and physically in one of these centers. So please, we already sent an email to everyone last Monday. There is a link. You need to complete two things. First, your profile in the MicroMaster portal, and second thing, go to the survey and choose your preferred option, virtual or physically. For the physical option, we cannot ensure that you are going to have a room in this center, but we will try our best in order to meet your requirements. Okay, what else? Again, we are very, very excited about that you are almost about to cross the finish line of the MicroMaster program. Best of luck with SC4X. It's just that you need to complete the final exam, you need to complete the grade assignment for the last week, and you are almost about to meet all the requirements for the final, the comprehensive final exam. With that, you will earn the MicroMaster credential, the certificate, and then you are going to be on great hands. You are going to be with Bruce, you are going to be with Josue, and they are going to take care of you here on campus, and they are going to explain all of the things that you need to be part of MIT. So thank you so much, and I will be very happy to answer any question you might have at the end of this presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Eva. Excellent. I can tell you're excited about this.
Yes, I'm very excited. Yes.
Okay, let's move ahead to talk about the timeline.
Yeah.
So we're getting very close. The application system, the online system, our grad apply system, will open up on April 1st, which is in only a few days. We'll start taking applications. The next thing, I think that date should say May 19th to the 22nd is
Yes.
the correct date for the comprehensive final exam.
That's right.
And on June 1st, we're going to have another session like this, and we'll answer another set of questions. We'll talk about things like housing and more about the research project and so forth. So the application deadline for you to submit is June 15. So everything has to be in by the end of the day, June 15. And we will have 1.5 months then to evaluate all of the applications we receive. And that's going to be a task because we're going to have to read all about your research projects. We'll talk about that in a minute. But by September 1st, we will, by August 15th, we will, I'm getting ahead of myself. By August 1st, we will be announcing our decisions.
Mhm.
And we will then have another information system session on August 15th. For those students who have been admitted, on August 15th, we'll have a session to explain what's happening and so forth. And that's during the time they have from August 1st until September 1 to make up their minds if they want to accept our offer of admission, right? Mm-hmm. And we'll talk about what it means on September 1st to accept. There's a deposit that has to be paid, and for international students, a proof of funding has to be submitted at that same time. So then in September, on September 15th, we will have, by that time we'll know who the class is, who's going to be in the class and who isn't, and we'll have an onboarding information session for those admitted students at that time. By October 1st, the international students can then start applying for their visa to come to the United States. It takes quite a while to get your visa, 3 months or more, right? But you'll be a very busy person between September 1st when you accept and December 1st. There's going to be a lot of work done on your research project, and we're going to talk about that even more in the next session that we have here. January 4th will be your first day here at MIT, and we have sort of some of the pictures you saw of the students bonding out on the island. Well, unfortunately, on January 4th, the island is covered with snow and ice, so we'll have to come up with a different way for you to have your bonding out there, right? But then on January 8th is the first day of Scale Connect, and that's when all of the students from all the other centers will be here. We go here at MIT from having 40 students, my residential students, up to having about 200 students. So it's going to be a very active and fun time. So that's the schedule. And what I thought I would do next is show you the timeline that all the students. So we'll start off by showing you the residential timeline, and then we'll show how the blended timeline fits into that. So the 10-month program that we have, the residential 10-month program, it starts in August. There's 3 weeks in August period. And during that orientation, probably the main purpose, there's 2 main purposes. One is to have you all get to know and meet each other and learn about each other and so forth. The second purpose of the orientation is to reteach you math. You know, when you were an undergraduate, you took some math courses, you got pretty good at math, but then you were out working for a number of years and you got great work experience, but of course you forgot all the math you ever learned in your life, right? So we have to sort of reteach you math before school starts officially right after Labor Day in the United States. So orientation is in August, and then the fall semester, September, October, November, and most of December. The students in the residential program are taking our hard courses, logistics systems, database analysis, supply chain finance. There's a lot of job recruiting happening at that time. Now, while our residential students are here doing that, the blended folks are out continuing to work and finishing up. You're finishing up, you've applied, you've gotten your MicroMaster's credential, you're working on getting a research project proposal finalized and so forth. And these 2 streams of activity come together and meet in January. So right after January 1st, January 4th, the blended folks show up, and then a few days later, January 8th, all of the students from around the world show up here. And we have an extremely busy January period. You're put on all sorts of teams, team projects. We're trying to get you to meet and know everybody else in the whole network. There's case competitions, there's facility tours, there's business simulation games. And and there's mini courses that you take. So, and of course, the big thing that happens is the Research Expo, which is a large gala event. Each of the students have created a poster of their research, and we have hundreds of executives from business come in and see the posters and talk to the students. And then we begin the spring semester. And the spring semester is the hard work of getting your thesis done or your capstone project done. There are more courses on global trade. There's case studies. There's some more finance, supply chain finance that occurs in that time. You take systems dynamics. And there's a big get together for Research Fest where you're showing off your research project and its results to all of our sponsoring companies and our network of companies that belong to the supply chain exchange. So that's how the two programs come together. I just show you a few pictures. I mentioned orientation. You can see there's a big contraption there that the students climb up on ropes, and nobody thinks they'll ever make it, but almost all the students make it to the top of that. No one's fallen off yet. We haven't lost any. A few took some interesting swings along the way, but and you can see in the upper right is our Research Expo, the poster session, the event where all the executives come. In the bottom middle, we have a couple of competitions, and these are the proud winners. I think this is the Apex case competition. They're holding up a trophy. We got the largest trophy that they sold. And actually, the very first day you're here, you're going to play the beer game, which is right at the top there. So that's what happens at orientation. What's the next? So let me talk about the 2 degrees. For years and years, we only had 1 degree. It was the Master of Engineering and Supply Chain Management, which is not exactly the right degree for most of our students. So we just got that changed, fortunately, to the Master of Applied Science for Supply Chain Management. So if you're a student who maybe came from industry and is going to go back to industry, this is the degree that is appropriate for you. It requires a capstone project that's usually done in conjunction with a sponsoring company, and you have to write up a report on the capstone project. This is the degree that almost all of the incoming students, both the blended students and the residential students, will take from now on. Now, if a student is very, very interested in continuing in research, or they want to go on and get a PhD, then we'll talk to that student, and they can take the Master of Engineering in Supply Chain Management. A little bit different. They are doing a master's thesis, which is different than a capstone project. Master's thesis has a big literature review. The methodology is much more rigorous. But that would be appropriate for a student who wants to go on in research or pursue a PhD. So most of the students will be getting the Master of Applied Science in Supply Chain Management. And when you apply, you're just applying to the master's program. It may actually say that by default you're applying to the Master of Applied Science, but don't worry about that. Once you get here, we'll sort out which degree is appropriate for what you want to do. Now, let me talk a little about the curriculum. In January, there's 2 courses that you take, 2 official courses. One is called Leading Global Teams. This is an excellent opportunity. We have about 200 students here from probably 50 different countries. You get to meet people from all different cultures, and you discover that not everybody thinks about things the same way you think about things. People don't think about time management the same way you do. So there's a lot of getting used to working in global teams. The other course deals with supply chain software. And there's a tremendous number, there's career development workshops, like I said, tours and mini courses and so forth. It's a very busy time in January. The spring semester, and as you can see up on the title, it says approximate, still being finalized. We're still not quite done negotiating with each other as to how we want to do the spring, but it will have 1 or 2 writing classes. There will be part of global supply chain management. The interesting thing is that when we created the MicroMasters curriculum, we didn't just transfer existing courses in MIT's curriculum to be online. That did not happen. What happened was pieces of many courses got moved to be online. Yeah. And so now when you come with the blended program, you have a situation where students have taken, like for example, my course, Global Supply Chain Management, the online students have taken, perhaps 40% of my course, but they haven't taken the other 60%. In supply chain finance, the same thing. The online students have taken a fraction of that course, but not the entire course. So we had to do some interesting maneuvers here. So you'll see here where it says SCM 267, Global Supply Chain Applications. That's really the part of my class that the online student did not yet take. So they'll have to take a new course that's just that part. And similarly, when we get into case studies for supply chain financial analysis, the same thing is going on. They've already had part of the course online. Now they're going to take the other part of the course. There's also a class in systems dynamics. All the students take this class, all the SCM students. And the students will either do a capstone project, SCM 800, or they'll do a thesis if they're pursuing the Master of Engineering degree. They get to choose between one of two strategy courses, case studies in logistics and supply chain management, or operations strategy. So as we get closer, you'll have a chance to go through the curriculum and understand, and there'll be an advisor to help you figure out what you should be taking. But that's the curriculum as it stands right now. So I want to spend a minute now talking about the application process. Obviously, there's an online application that's going to open up just a few days, the Grad Apply system. You have to obviously fill that out. In order to qualify to even begin the whole thing, you have to have achieved the MicroMasters credential. If you are on the path but have not yet achieved the MicroMasters credential, you will have to wait until the next round. You'll have to wait until next year. We can't take people who are somewhere in the middle, unfortunately. You have to have finished it before you start, right? You'll have to give us a resume. You'll have to give us a copy of your undergraduate transcript. A couple of comments here. An unofficial copy is fine for now. Those students who are actually admitted will eventually have to send us an official copy, but we don't want to send everybody through the process and the expense until you know you've been admitted, right? And what we're looking for in the undergraduate transcript is that you went to college, you graduated. Very different from what I do for the residential students. For the residential students, I go through, and the first thing I do is I circle every math class that they took to make sure that they have enough math background. I'm looking for more A's than B's on the transcript, right? So for the MicroMasters students, you've already proved yourself by taking these 5 courses and the comprehensive final exam. So all I'm looking for is confirmation that you did go to college and earned an undergraduate degree, okay? I'm not looking at your GPA or anything, okay? So it's a lot nicer. You'll need to give us 2 letters of recommendation. Hopefully one can come from a professional, like your manager, your boss, a previous boss, whatever, and one from a professor, if possible. You'll have to make a very short video statement of your objectives. You stand in front of the camera and make a YouTube video of why do you want to come to school? What do you want to study supply chain management for, right? Now, a very important part of this application is going to be, it's only 2 pages, but it has to describe your research project proposal, whether it's going to be a thesis or a capstone project. And we'll give you some guidance on how to do that, but we want to see what you come up with. And we're going to talk in the next slide a lot more about that research proposal. And if your native language is not English, you'll have to take the TOEFL or the IELTS scores. There are a couple of situations where you can get waivers for that. If you went to college and took all your college courses in English and so forth, you can get a waiver of that, right? So that's a quick look at the admissions requirements. What I want to do now is talk about this research project a little bit. My residential students, when they come here, companies come and present to them and so forth, but you're only going to be on campus for a short amount of time, so you need to really start working on your research project ahead of time. In fact, you should probably start working on your research project right now, okay? So,
Yeah.
after the exam, right? Finish the exam, all right. But, so obviously it has to be a project about supply chain. You can't do a project on something else, right? We prefer that the research project have some kind of quantitative analysis in it. Sure. We prefer that your research project have some type of collaboration with industry, some company. So you need to start thinking about what would I do my project on, and who would I collaborate with. Like I said, the blended students are only on campus for 5 months, as opposed to the residential students are here for 10 months. So you have to, and you're both going to finish at the same time. So you have to really start working on your research project idea way in advance. And so the things you need to think about is what supply chain problem do you want to attack? What methodology do you think you're going to use to solve this problem or approach this problem? Are you going to collaborate with industry? And so what industry? Is there a particular company within that industry? Okay. For your methodology, are you going to need data? And what data would you need? And where do you think you're going to get this data? Where's it going to come from, right? And of course, one very interesting thing that is this something you can actually get done in time to graduate? You'd be amazed at how many projects we start around here that keep getting smaller and smaller as that date for graduation gets closer and closer, because you gotta leave. You can't stay. I don't have enough room for everybody to hang around, so you got to graduate. So that's the research project. Well, again, we'll talk more about that the next information session that we have. But let's talk a little bit about money. The program is not cheap. The tuition, as you can see, is about $42,533, $553 rather. There's also living expenses. Cambridge is not the cheapest place to live.
At all.
They don't let you bring a tent and set it up in the street outside. So the living expenses are about $2,690, depending on how lavish your lifestyle is. We have some students who are quite lavish, so it's a lot more than that. But the total amount you should be planning on is about 57,000, around that area, 57,559 it says, but it depends on a lot of things, right? And I guess a couple of comments. We know that everybody wants financial aid. We've been discussing that since the first day somebody mentioned the blended program. We are trying to see if we can find sources of financial aid. We're still continuing to work on that. But for your planning purposes, you should assume that financial aid is quite limited. There will not be very much of it. That's very common in graduate school. In medicine and in business, most of those programs are self-funded. You pay for it by yourself. I think the thinking is that when you graduate, you're going to get such a nice salary that you'll be able to pay back the loans. And that's usually true for our students as well. But there's no separate application form that needs to be filled out for financial aid. When you're in the grad apply system, it'll ask you a couple of questions about what funding sources you have and what your need is. And that's where you put in your information. And the decisions for the tiny amount of financial aid that we do have, we really base it on a combination of merit and need. So that's the tuition and financial aid. Let's talk about what it means to accept an offer from our program. So we're going to be telling you, let's see, I think August 1st, whether you've been admitted or not. There will be a wait list that gets formed at that time for people who have not been admitted but are next in line on the wait list, right? To accept our offer of admission, you have to give us two things. If you're an international student, everybody has to pay a deposit of $2,500 by September 1st. Okay. If you're an international student, you must also provide a proof of funding, proof of that you've got enough money to come here and pay for the program. We're going to talk a little bit more about this in a minute, but let's just see what the next slide is. Yeah, so let me talk about proof of funding here. If you're an international student, this is exactly the same information that the International Students Office is going to require to get your visa. The difference is that we're asking for it earlier, and it is a condition of your admission if you're an international student, right? And so the deadline, if you're an international student, we need to see the deposit of $2,500, and we need to see the documentation on proof of funding. And so let me explain why we're doing this. Almost always, the students on our wait list are themselves international students, right? And unfortunately, very frequently, almost every year, what happens is we admit students, they're all happy, they pay their fee, their deposit. And then as we get closer and closer to the time when the students need to arrive on campus, the phone rings and one or two students say, you know, I really can't find the money to come. Let me try again next year, or let me. So they're withdrawing from the program, but unfortunately they're withdrawing from the program too late for the next student to apply for the visa. So they've essentially cheated the next student on the wait list out of the chance to come to MIT. And this is, we're very sad when this happens. It's very unfair to the people on the wait list. So what we've changed for the blended program, and also we've changed this for the residential program. So for the blended program, you have until September 1st to show us not only the deposit, but the proof of funding. If you don't provide us the proof of funding by September 1st, we're going to then give that slot to the next person on the wait list. And we've timed it so that the next person on the wait list does have enough time to get their proof of funding and still get the visa, right? It was just too unfair to people on the wait list when people drop out at the last minute, and now the people on the wait list don't get to come.
We expect it's going to be very competitive. A lot of students want to have access to this program, so it's just to be fair with all of the students.
So the proof of funding has to show that you have enough money, and we've calculated with the International Students Office has actually come up with this number. The $57,559 is what you have to be able to show. And there's a whole website. The ISO office has a website that shows it. We also repeated it on the link that you see on the slides as to exactly what documentation you need to submit. And we're going to be providing the admitted students with our instructions on how to submit that information. Important, don't forget the proof of funding or your slot will be given to the next person. Okay, that's for international students. So if you're an international student, the International Students Office is a very important and primary contact for you to get your visa. They will start issuing I-20 documents around October 1st, and that means you can now start applying for your visa immediately at that time. And I would suggest you not wait. Interesting things are going on in the world today, and so anything like that is simply going to slow down visa applications. So get your application in as fast as you can. You're allowed to arrive on campus 30 days before the official start of school. And so the way MIT works, they believe that the official start of school in January is January 8th for their IAP program. So you could actually come to campus on December 9th is the first time you could come if you're an international student. Our students are going to have to be here. The blended people will have to be here on January 4th. We're going to have about 2 days of playing the beer game and then some fun activity. I don't know what the fun activity is going to be. We have to see what we can do in the ice and snow. But that's when you'll come. So you'll need to get the proof of funding anyhow. We just need it about a month earlier than you're going to need it for the ISO. So let me just talk about what the next session is going to focus on. The next time we have one of these information sessions, we're going to talk about what goes on between after the students are admitted and when they arrive. It's going to be a busy time. We're going to give more information about this research project. Although as soon as this test is over, they need to start thinking about that, right? The expectations of the program, Scale Connect. Scale Connect is what we call the January program. We'll talk about recruiting, job recruiting, and the job search. I know it's a very important topic to a lot of folks here. Housing and medical insurance. So those are some of the topics we'll talk about next time. But see, I went too far. There we go. So we're just about ready to take questions and answers.
We've got lots of questions
I
here.
would kind of urge people, if there's a way to keep your questions dealing with the subjects that we copied today, we covered today. Knowing that we're going to have another information session on June 1st, it'll talk about a lot of other things. So we're ready for questions and answers at this time.
All right, so I have lots of questions.
You have lots of questions. We'll also take some from the folks in the audience. So why don't you start off, and then we'll do one from the audience.
Okay, so the first one is on the CFX. So that's for you, Ava.
Not surprising.
From Antonio. Do I need to use my own computer for the CFX?
Okay, so then let's differentiate between the virtual and the physical test.
Okay.
I'm not sure if he's asking about the virtual. Okay, so for the virtual one, yes, you are going to use your computer, your laptop. You need to be sure that you meet all the requirements for the proctor test. As you know, the comprehensive final exam is going to be time exam and also proctor exam. That means that Software Secure is the provider and RP Now is the software that you need to download in order to take the comprehensive final exam. So we will publish all of the details about the requirements. You already have the opportunity to take 2 proctor exam, one in SC4X, one in SC0X. Is going to be exactly the same requirement. So I would say, Antonio, if you already took the proctor test in SC4X, same thing. If this worked for you, it's going to work for the comprehensive final exam.
What about the people that are going to our center site? So if I
For
want to
our
go to
center
Zaragoza,
site, yes, we also expect that you bring your own computer or your own laptop. If there is any issue or something happen, we will provide some extra one, but we expect you bring your own laptop. You need to have access to the platform, to edX. Yeah, in the case of the physical one, the only difference is you are going to be physically proctored. You don't need to download the virtual and the software to be virtual proctor. This is the difference between the physical and the proctor exam.
Okay.
The virtual proctors.
Yeah. Okay. And he had one additional follow-up to that. Will we allow key concept documents on the CFX?
Yes, we will allow key concept documents. Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Will be allowed. We will provide all the details about what things are allowed during the comprehensive final exam.
Okay. Questions from the audience on the CFX, as long as we're on the topic.
Oh, I'm sorry. CFX, no, sorry.
How about any?
Any questions from the audience?
What about a practice test?
We are going to offer practice tests. Once we open the comprehensive final course, it's going to be a regular course on edX. You are going to have the opportunity to have this proctor practice test in order to be sure that you download the software and you meet all of the requirements. So yes, we are going to offer this in the week 0. Once you enroll in the course, you can have this practice test.
And the test is going to have questions, or is it just a set?
The questions are just the practice test. The goal of that is just to be sure that you download the software and you meet all the requirements. So the questions are going to be very simple questions, just to be sure that you read all of the instructions and you meet the requirements. No exam questions for the practice test.
Okay.
Yeah, makes sense.
Another question up here.
For the exam on physical campus, will be there like a specific time that the students should be here?
Sure. Yes. For the
So
physical,
let's restate the question. So he was asking for the physical,
yes.
what the time will be.
The time will be, yes. We'll publish the detail, but will be in the morning of the May 20. Depending on the center, we are going to start, let's say 9 a.m. You are going to have the first exam, then a break, and then the second exam. So it's going to be from 9 to 11, a break, and then the second exam during the morning. Here at MIT or Zaragoza or in any center is going to happen during the morning of Saturday, May the 20th.
Okay. And I have another question about the CFX. So Maria Cruz, will the CFX exam be weighted in the final grade of the MicroMaster total?
Oh, this is a very good question, Maria. You need to pass the comprehensive final exam in order to earn the MicroMaster credential. It's going to be a pass.
Okay.
The pass bar is going to be the 60% for this course. So far, this is what we know about the comprehensive final exam. So you need to pass it. And then once you pass this exam, you qualify for the MicroMaster credential.
Okay. Maria has a follow-up.
Let me
Yeah.
just add to that comment, which is when we are examining applications for the blended program, we will be looking at all the items that are required. But the scores that were achieved on each of the courses and the score that was achieved on the comprehensive final exam are inputs to the application process. So in that regard, this score is not just a pass, but it's
Definitely. To earn the MicroMaster credential is just a pass. For the blended program and the selection admission criteria,
Right.
we are
We
going
take
to take into consideration all of your performance during the 5 SCX courses plus the comprehensive final exam. Yeah, good one.
Maria was also asking if they'll get their final ranking in the MicroMasters after completed. Will you be ranking everyone?
We can think about that. They want to know the top 10 students or the top 100 students. We can think about that. We definitely, once we have the first core, we will have one event for all of our MicroMaster students, and we can think about ranking them. Yeah,
Okay.
it's a good thought. We will think about that.
Any other questions in the room on the CFX? Otherwise, I have one more here.
Is there going to be a practice test for defining CFS?
Yeah, no, is the practice test in order to download the software and be ready, or what do you mean with the practice test?
All the,
Okay. This is the first time. It's the first time, so we have no previous comprehensive final exam. So I would say the best way to prepare for this comprehensive final exam is to go through the 5 courses, be inspired in the final exam midterm that you already took in our previous courses. We do not have any previous exam in order to share with you. So for this time, I would say the best source in order to prepare that is our courses and the final and midterm exam that you have taken with us.
Sam from our virtual audience kind of has a follow-up to that question. So he's asking, in a prior Hangout, it was said the best way to prepare for the CFX is to review GA, but the GA is no longer available?
No, the GAs are available.
Okay.
The GA are available. The midterm and the final exam are not available, but the GAs are available.
Okay.
Yes.
So those are available
Yeah,
in the
the
questions?
GAs are available. Yeah.
Okay.
For the archive courses. Yeah.
Good. All right, so then let's move on to the SCMB. Does anyone in the audience have questions?
Do you have a sense or a desired idea of what the student profile will look like as far as perhaps number of years of work experience or undergraduate pedigree, that sort of thing?
Yeah, that's a great question. I appreciate. So the question was, do we have an expectation of what the profile will look like for our blended student? Let me start by answering the reverse of that question. Our residential program, and this is one of the reasons we're starting the blended program. Residential program, the people who come here to hire our residential students are looking for 25 to 35 years old, really high credentials in undergraduate, obviously high credentials in our program here. You have to have a very high GMAT score to get into the residential and so on. We're hoping very much that the MicroMasters program and our blended will bring in very much non-traditional candidates, a different profile than that, okay? There's lots of great people out there who are older than 25 to 35 years old, or they didn't get all A's as an undergraduate, or they didn't score a 750 on the GMAT test, right? And so this is an opportunity because you have a chance to prove yourself through the MicroMasters credential, a much broader scope of folks, right? We are going to require that people have at least 2 years of work experience. That makes a huge difference in the classroom because the students contribute to the classroom discussion tremendously, right? And it helps a lot if you've got some work experience that you can contribute. You're much more valuable in the classroom if you can relate some of your own experiences. But we're really excited about getting non-traditional candidates, and your students are perhaps older, a lot of years of work experience. There are certain countries and cultures where it's almost impossible to get a good score on the GMAT test. So lots of geographies in the world are underrepresented in our program because they just cannot get a good score on the GMAT test. And so we're anxious to get students from those areas into the program. So I really don't have I know what it's not going to look like, but I don't really know what it is going to look like. And I'm anxious to see who all applies.
That's the exciting part of it being
Absolutely.
the first time,
Folks
right?
that, non-traditional folks that we normally would not have in our classes, we're anxious to get into our classes. As far as your academic credentials, like I said, if you're applying to the residential program, I'm looking for more A's than B's. I'm looking for these math courses. For the blended program, I just want to see that you, in fact, have an undergraduate degree. I don't care what your GPA was or how many math courses you took.
But you will care about the performance in the MicroMaster.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
MicroMasters becomes the important thing.
Okay. I have another question for you, Bruce. From Xavier and Pankaj. If I cannot complete my application this year, are there any effects to applying in another year? So if they complete it and then they can't do it this year, but they want to come back 2 years from now, can they do that?
Sure, they can apply again. This happens all the time. People apply, they don't get admitted. We have a conversation. We say, here's where you were weak and so forth. And they go out and do a lot of stuff to get ready and apply again. And now they're a stronger candidate. That happens all the time.
Okay.
And so there'll probably be a lot of MicroMasters folks. I think one issue was some of the MicroMasters students might not have taken one of the classes as verified, and so they've got an incomplete set as verified.
And they need to go.
This is an opportunity to retake that course as a verified, and now they can apply.
Yes. Another situation that can happen if they fail the comprehensive final exam, then they can take it one more time. For more than that, they need to send a note to us and explain the situation, and then we will take a decision.
Okay. What about people who complete the 5 courses, they don't take the CFX this time,
They can
but they
take
decide they want to take
next year.
Okay,
Yeah,
they
they
can.
can take again the next time.
it? Okay, good. Okay, so Rafaela has another question. Are the application requirements different for ZLC, or will they be exactly the same?
I think they're going to be exactly the same. I don't see any differences between it. There's going to be, we're expecting several hundred people to apply for the blended program. I'm going to be able to admit 40 into my class. The ZLC, they teach the same program exactly that we teach here. They will be able to accept a number of students. I don't know if it'll be 40, but it's a great alternative for a person that might not get into our program here at MIT.
Yeah, and I want also to add that other universities are also planning to offer blended program. So we have in the process of signing agreements with universities in Australia, universities in Europe, and other universities in the United States that they are also planning to offer blended programs. So this is also an opportunity for you guys to apply for this.
Yeah, and the blended students that would go to Zaragoza in Spain actually start their program on January 4th here at MIT.
Right.
So the first 3 weeks of their Spanish,
There's no difference.
they're right here with
Exactly
them in the mix. Yeah.
Okay. Another question. Do we need a company to sponsor the capstone research project?
That's a great question. We prefer that you do your capstone project in collaboration with an industry sponsor. I'm not going to say it's an absolute requirement, but as we look through the candidate projects, we like to see those. All of our residential students do projects that are sponsored by companies. So I think it probably improves your chances of being admitted if you have a company sponsor, especially because we like to see students do quantitative analysis in their thesis. And when you do quantitative analysis, it always says, okay, we're going to need some data. Where are you going to get the data? If you're collaborating with a company, you can get their data, whether it's sales transaction data or shipment data or whatever it is. That's a source of data. It also adds so much genuineness to the problem. Problems with industry are always messy, okay? Whereas if you sit at your desk and make up a problem yourself, it's nice and neat, but that's not the way it works in the real world. So that we like it when they collaborate with a company.
Yeah. So Naveen is wondering if your current company doesn't sponsor a capstone project, will we be offering any resources to help them connect with companies?
So we actually are not. I spend the entire summer rounding up research projects for my residential students who are showing up here in August, right? And that takes me most of the summer to find those projects, all right? We're not staffed to round up projects, and so that's why I'm saying you just start thinking about your research project way in advance. what problem do you want to solve, how are you going to solve it, what company, what type of industry would have this type of problem, have conversations with those companies, see if you can find someone to work with you to help sponsor that from a data point of view. And also, when we do our research projects, we have weekly interactions with these companies. We're always, there's a team at the company, there's a team here at MIT. Most of the research projects end up getting done with 2 students and 1 advisor on the same project, and your projects will probably end up the same way. And so they have a weekly conference call to work on the project.
Okay, I have more questions here, but let's
We
take
have one question.
one from back here.
So with regards to the actual degree, is it envisioned that Zaragoza will be also offering the Master of Applied Science and the Master of Engineering as MIT is?
At the moment, so the question is, what degree will be offered by the Zaragoza Logistics blended program? Right now, their degree is the Master of Engineering and Supply Chain Management, and there's no plan right now to change that to a Master of Applied Science. But I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that their Master of Engineering in Supply Chain Management has a research project. It's not, I don't think it's defined as a thesis project. So they're already sort of in the middle zone there. So, and it works very well.
Okay, so we're also being asked if the information about the research project is already posted on the website. Will we be posting that?
Sure. I mean, I think these the list of frequently asked questions
Has that?
is up there.
Okay.
So we want to give the students freedom. We're not going to create a form that you fill out that describes your research project. We're telling you you should write a 2-page description, and it has to cover the things that I mentioned here around, what problem, what industry, what data, where you're going to get the data. If you have a company, and the scope. Can you actually get this done in time to graduate?
Great. Nicholas is asking, is there a way for us to discuss our research subject in advance?
That's a great question. That's a great question. Probably not a chance to discuss your research project before you apply,
Yeah,
because then we'd have to discuss it with
so many.
with several hundred people who are
Yeah.
applying. We don't know how to do it. But I can tell you that the moment that you are admitted, you will start having lots of conversations about that research project with our staff and the people who are going to run the program. In fact, one thing we didn't mention here, we couldn't quite get the technology working today, but you will certainly see it in the next time, is the person that's going to run our program is Jose Velasquez. The person who's going to run the program in Spain is Marta Romero. And they are both anxious, and they will be working with you very closely after the admission process and between then and December 1st, when you have to have stuff ready.
Yeah, I know they were both sad to not be with us.
Yeah.
Just a follow-up on the ZLC program. Is that going to be a completely separate application process than the MIT application, or is that streamlined?
So the question was, if you want to apply to the blended program in Zaragoza, is it a separate application process? The answer is no. All of the scale centers, Luxembourg, Ningbo, China, and so we all use MIT's grad apply system. If you go into the grad apply system, I don't know if it's the first page or maybe the second page, you actually have a list. You have a list of what program, and you can check which if you want to apply just to MIT, or if you can apply to several programs, you can check the box, right? And that'll be the same way with the blended program. You can check which of the centers. I would be to your advantage. I would think to apply to both of them because I can only take 40 people here, and the folks in Spain can take another group of people as well. So.
So will we be posting any examples of previous research projects?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, we'll be posting on our website. You can find.
Executive summaries.
Yeah. So we have we post a lot of stuff. We post for our previous thesis projects. The students create a 3-page executive summary, and I believe those are posted all the way back probably to 1998 or whatever the thing got going here.
Yeah.
So you can see a lot of descriptions of research projects on our website, and that would be under publications.
Right, on the ctl.mit.edu
Yeah, CTL. .mit.edu. Actually, that's where the publications are. And you can go in there and look for theses, and you can see. Now, I don't know if people who are not partners can get the entire 50 to 100 page, but you'll see. You probably don't want that. You can see the 3-page description of the projects that we did.
And that'll give you a pretty good idea.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
So another question.
Yeah, another question up here.
I have two questions. So the first one, for the research proposal, when we submit the proposal for before admission, would it be acceptable if someone is creative and kind of do a PowerPoint slide, so kind of introduction to the project? So that's my first question.
So the question was, besides the 2-page written description of a research project for their application, can they also submit other materials such as the PowerPoint presentation? I guess I would discourage that. And the reason I would discourage that is because imagine from our point of view, we're going to have several hundred applications all arriving on June 15th, right? And I can't guarantee you that I'm going to get a chance to look at all of the videos and PowerPoint presentations. I'm really looking for that 2-page description to be very, very clearly written, very easy to read, and talk about a very interesting problem, and that you really have under control how you're going to solve that problem. So I would focus your attention on doing a great job on that 2 pages, and I would discourage anyone from sending home movies, whatever you want. I would not do that for the application.
But it will be in specific format, right? The 2 pages, or there will be a specific.
We will give some instructions, but like I said, we are not trying to create a form that you fill out. We want you to write something and sort of convince me that this is a great project.
Did you have a
Yeah, I had another question. So my understanding is that the blended master is going to be an intensive semester for the students, especially for the blended master students. Will be there any chance for students, once they know that they are admitted, to start working on their project well in advance? So probably when January 1st comes, the student has 50% complete project or something like that?
So the question is, your semester here as a blended student is going to be very intense, and that is also true of the residential students. It's very intense, right? And so is there a chance for the blended students to work on their project in advance? And the answer is absolutely yes. In fact, you have to work on your project in advance. In fact, the next time we have a session, we'll talk about what milestones you need to have gotten completed by December 1st, and then by the time you show up on January 4th and so forth. So by the time you get here, you've got all of the planning done and some of the work actually done on the project before you arrive, because you're only here for 5 months. Part of the big debate that we had before we even set up the blended program was, is there any possible way these students can get done with their project in only 5 months? And we finally came to the conclusion, yes, if they start ahead of time. And so that's what's going to have to happen.
All right, so we have another question from the virtual audience. Peter Ting is asking, I recall from previous Hangout events that the thesis capstone project will be done in groups of 2 people. If one has a sponsor, is it possible that the sponsor will not be picked? Do I need to find a working partner? So that's a lot of questions.
All right, we're going to talk a lot more about that in our next session, but the simple answers are yes. We would like to have the projects have a sponsoring company. We prefer that.
Yeah.
Not an absolute guarantee. Yes, we would like to have 2 students on a project. For your application, however, you're applying as an individual.
Yeah.
So there'll be a process that happens after you're admitted, but before December, where we figure out who's going to work on what project, whose projects are going to be used, who sponsors the best, right? So there'll be a process. We haven't figured that out yet. That's part of what Jose Velasquez and Marta will figure out, how to go from the 40 projects that got you admitted into the 20 projects that we're going to work on in teams. So that's, stay tuned. We'll figure that out.
One more question.
You mentioned the courses that you'll be taking in the IAP and in the spring. When will you have an idea of what additional courses will be available? Like specifically, are you going to offer SCM 283 and 284, humanitarian logistics and humanitarian research project?
So the question was, when are we going to understand what additional, that curriculum slide, when is that going to be finalized, and are we going to offer
Elective.
electives, especially the two humanitarian, 283 and 284. If you look at MIT's course catalog, it looks like there's thousands of courses there. And then you realize that some of them aren't being offered this semester. That's always very frustrating to students. Oh, I really wanted to, but the professor is doing a sabbatical in Singapore this year and he's not around. He's not teaching the class. That happens all the time, and it's frustrating. I would love to see the humanitarian courses be offered again. Dr. Jared Gensel, who runs our humanitarian response lab, is one of the busiest guys in our area. And he sometimes gets so busy responding to humanitarian crises.
Mm-hmm.
See, he's out there trying to help the NGOs do a much better job and so forth. And he sometimes doesn't have time to teach his own class. And so we'll lobby on your behalf that he offer that. I would love to see him offer that class all the time, as students are often asking if they can take that class.
Mm-hmm.
So don't know, but we'll try.
Any other questions from the audience here live? No? Okay, I'll take another one from our virtual audience. So Nick Roth is asking, what kind of specific insight can you provide to help candidates understand the strength of their profile?
What kind of insight on the strength? So what am I looking for in terms of a profile?
Yeah, he has more to the question too. If you want me to.
Well,
Okay. So he's interested in attending, but he wouldn't want to ask his leadership about it unless he had a pretty good chance of making it into the program.
Well, that's always a challenge. I'm not sure I can help him there. But what I can say is think about putting yourselves in my shoes. As I've got 200, 300 applications. What am I looking for, right? So there's probably no one criteria. I'm looking for this beautiful mix. I want to see people who did pretty well in the MicroMasters credential and did pretty well on the, not necessarily the top student, just because you got the top score doesn't mean you're right.
Yeah.
So, but I want you to do pretty well.
Yeah.
Okay. I want to see some excellent work experience because, like I said, when you get in the classroom, you're going to learn as much from your classmates as you're going to learn from the professors, right? And so I want you to all be able to contribute tremendously to the conversation. So I'm looking at that great work experience. I'm looking for a lot of diversity. I'm looking for, for example, there's diversity not only in cultures and what parts of the world people came from, but there's industries. Trying to get a guy who understands shipping or a woman who understands railroads. These are things that are underrepresented. But so I'm looking for a mix of expertise. I'm looking, part of your application process is you're doing a video explaining why you want to study supply chain management. We're going to look at those videos very carefully. We want to see how well do you speak, how well do you present, how articulate are you, how well do you present your reasons and ideas. That's your statement of objectives. Yeah. So that's very important.
Make sure your passion comes through in that video.
How motivated you are for this program.
We want to see the excitement.
I'm always look at. No? How motivated are you?
Right. So there's a lot of things we're looking for. And so again, and we're looking for these non-traditional candidates. That doesn't mean that someone who is 25 to 35 can't get in. That's absolutely not true. But I'm not restricting myself to any particular profile that would fit very nicely in our residential program.
Okay. All right, I have a new question. I'm not sure if we know the answer to this one. If we do online courses, succeed in the MicroMasters, all or in part, and then apply for the 10-month program, can there be a waiver in courses or a reduction in the fee?
So that's funny.
Yeah.
So I love the reduction in the fee.
Yeah.
The first thing you'll
That's
learn,
really the question.
right? The M in MIT stands for money, right? So reduction in the fee. Forget a reduction in the fee. That never gonna happen, right?
No.
Okay. So the rest of the question is very good though. So, and we're getting that right now. In fact, right now, students are applying to our residential program, and we're starting to see many students that are applying have taken 1, 2, or 3 of the online courses.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's good. We think that's a very positive thing. That strengthens, in my opinion, that strengthens their application. The idea that you took a course online and now I don't have to take that course in person in the residential program, the way we're going to handle that is it's up to the professor. So for example, Jim Rice and Jared Gensel teach supply chain finance. You have a student who comes in and say, hey, I took the online. Do I still have to take supply chain finance? And the way we decided to do it was we would let that student talk to that professor and try to convince that professor that even though it's a required class, you can let me waive out of it. So it'll be a case-by-case basis up to the professor. If they do say you can waive out of it, you'll still have to take other courses to get enough credits to graduate.
Right.
You're not going to get online credit if you're a residential student. That's not going to happen. Okay, but you can. They'll say, okay, you don't have to take supply chain finance. You take something else instead. That's going to happen, and sometimes the professor will allow you to waive out of the class, and sometimes they won't.
Okay. So Jeff Baker is asking for a little bit more clarification around the capstone project, specifically the statement of working groups of two. He thought that the capstone project was individual. Is that a choice for people?
Well, what we've discovered is the students really like to do it with a partner.
Yeah.
So one, I mean, if you ask all of our students, they really want to do it with a partner because you know, when you're at the blackboard brainstorming, it gives you somebody to talk to, and it's a much more enjoyable experience. Also, what we've found, the companies that are the sponsors really like two students in a project. It's a stronger project when two students have worked on it, right? Occasionally, for our residential program, if a student asks to do an individual project, we will often let them do that. But I can tell you, like this year, out of 40 residential students, we have 2 that are doing individual projects. That's all, right? So it's pretty unusual that it happens. So we would probably allow that to happen, but they'd have to have a good reason why they want to just do it by themselves.
Okay. Mohammed is asking for a little bit more clarification around the MIT ZLC applications and is asking if they want to be considered for both programs, can they use the same capstone project proposal? Yeah,
absolutely,
right?
absolutely. In fact, I would expect a lot of people who are going into our grad apply system would check both MIT and Zaragoza, or they could just check Zaragoza that they want to spend their master's degree in Europe. That's a lot of students like that. You can certainly do that. But the same project proposal can be done either place.
Okay. Yeah. Do you have any guidance on how long their application video should be?
There'll be instructions. I can't remember if it's 2 minutes or 5 minutes, but it's something like that. It's really short.
Sure. Okay. Yeah.
As you know, most of us out there, it's a lot harder to do something short and do it well. For example, on master's thesis projects, I tell my master's thesis students, I don't want to read past the 50th page. You got 50 pages, because if you leave people to their own devices, they'll go on forever, and it gets bad. So short is good.
Good. That's all I have for questions.
Any questions from, yes, we have a question.
Will there be opportunities for students to take electives and non-supply chain from other departments like arts or social sciences?
Right, so the question was, will the students have an opportunity to take electives in other departments? And yes, not a lot of opportunity, but at least one elective, maybe more than one, depending on some things. But we try to leave some room. You know, our program it probably ought to be 2 years long, and we've kind of condensed it down to 10 months, and now the blended people are going to try to do it in 5 months. And so there's not a lot of wiggle room left in what we're trying to cover, but I think there'll probably be enough room for at least one elective that you can take. And so our residential students take electives in all sorts of crazy things. Again, they don't have a lot of wiggle room, but if they want to take an elective in something, it has to be a graduate course. If you take an elective that's an undergraduate course, you can do that. It happens once in a while, but you don't get any credit for it.
Right.
So.
One last question over here.
For the CFS exam, we have 2 exams, exam 1 and exam 2.
Yes.
Is there a passing grade for each of those exams, maybe like minimum 60%?
Repeat the question.
Yes. So yeah, one student is asking if there is a passing grade between exam 1 and exam 2 in the comprehensive final exam. So there is a requirement that you need to take before exam 2, exam 1. So you need to take exam 1. you need to pass around 20% of exam 1 in order to take exam 2. But you don't need to pass the 60% of exam 1 in order to qualify for exam 2. Okay? Excellent, thank you.
So are there any more questions? Let me hop back to the oh, we had one more?
One more question. Do you have a recommendation, and perhaps more of a personal preference, but if one of our courses we didn't do as well as we would have liked on the edX side, would you recommend that we wait and retake it, or and go with one kind of our best submission maybe next year, or would you recommend, if we felt comfortable with our other courses and the rest of our profile, to try during this attempt?
So the question was, if you took the MicroMaster's credential, but you didn't do so well in one of the courses,
Yeah.
What should you do? Should you apply for the blended program, or should you wait and retake the course and then apply again?
Yeah. So
Curious to hear what you
Yeah.
said.
my recommendation is apply for the blended program this time. If not, retake the course and apply next time.
So
they would recommend.
So almost the same thing. Our program is pretty small. I mean, 40 students is small compared to the Sloan School with thousands of people, right?
Right.
And so what happens is people apply for the residential, for example, right? And they don't get in. And so I'm happy to have a conversation with the student to say, let's look at what your strengths and weaknesses were, because a lot of students want to go back and improve themselves and try again, right? And so we're happy to tell you, here's where you were strong, here's where you're weak, here, what could you do? For example, in the residential program, you'll have students who are very strong, except their GMAT score is pretty low, right? And we'll have a conversation and say, well, go retake that GMAT, get that GMAT up higher. Actually, in the residential, you can now waive the GMAT by taking the first 3 courses in the MicroMasters and doing really well. If you do really well in the first 3 courses of MicroMasters, we'll let you skip the GMAT test for the residential program. That's just new as of like last week, right? But the other thing that happens is you'll have a student who, they've now become serious about education. Their original GPA, their transcript from an undergraduate was not so great. And I can tell you that if we send that to the rest of the review committee, you're not going to get in. And so what we often do is say, no, look, go out and take a class in Calc 1, take a class in probability and statistics, get an A in both of those classes, and then send me those transcripts. And then when we review your application, I can put a note on top of it that says the student went out and specifically at our request took these extra classes and got an A. And so the review committee is much happier when they see that, because this student has dedicated, he's put in the effort, they've raised himself up. So it is possible to fix yourself and reapply. A number of our students in our residential class, I would say probably 20%, have fixed something and come back in and tried again, and it works.
One last question from the virtual audience. They're wondering if how they can indicate their first or second choice between MIT and ZLC. I think Gradapply allows you to do that, right?
That's a great question. I don't know if it allows. I don't think it does. I think what I would do in that case is you're going to have a statement. You're going to have a video statement of objectives. You might just mention in there, although I'm not sure. The 2 centers, in fact, all of our centers, we evaluate the candidates independently.
Right.
Okay. So Zaragoza is going to admit you or not admit you based on what they think about your application. I'm going to do the same thing. Ningbo is going to do the same thing in China and Luxembourg for the residential program, right? So I'm not sure it is even to your advantage to indicate at all.
Okay.
I would suggest you just not indicate, because the decisions are being made independently. If you are applying to some program, you want the person you're applying to think that you're excited about their program.
Yeah.
So I would not say you're my second choice in case if I don't get in, I would not do that. I would just apply.
Don't tell me the safety score.
Do we have any more? More last questions.
One last minute question.
Okay.
Sarah Van is asking if we have a GRE score, will that improve chances of getting into the blended program?
So for the blended program, we are purposely not looking at GMAT or GREs. If you took the GMAT or GRE and got an 800 or a perfect score, you might want to apply to the residential program. I don't know, but it's not going to help you at all with the blended program. We're just not doing that at all. So before we sign off, I just want to show back what the things we're going to talk about the next time. We're going to be talking about the timeline of what happens. We're going to be talking about the research project in more detail and things like housing and health insurance and recruiting and job search. So that's what we're going to talk about next time. I want to thank all of you who participated online, and especially thank the folks who came into Cambridge, Massachusetts today to be here at MIT. I wish you the best of luck on your comprehensive final exam. I hope you knock it out of the ballpark, do a great job on it, and I hope to see you in my class someday. Very good.
Thank you so much and best of luck.
Thank you.